There we go. Good morning to you, everyone. Or is it still morning? Yeah, it's still morning. At least morning where I'm at. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're doing well. Today, I want to talk to you about cultural transmission. There's three pillars of animal behavior. There's natural selection, there's individual learning, and there's cultural transmission. And it's really, really important because it really does affect any new dog that you bring into your household, especially if they're young. So, of course, Kara and I are thinking about that right now because we're getting ready probably in the next 2 weeks to accept and welcome the arrival of our new puppy. So a lot of stuff going through my head right now. I've got to brush off the old rust because the youngest dog I own is Captain. He's about 5.5 years of age. But before we get into cultural transmission, I'd actually like to start off this video, if you'll indulge me. I promise you'll be worth it. I'd like to tell you a funny story about what happened to me during my military career, my military training, because it leads right into cultural transmission. It's a human example of cultural transmission. Okay, so here we go. So way back in the day, back in about 1983, I went through some training for the United States Navy known as explosive ordnance disposal. If you've ever seen the movie, the 2008 movie with Jeremy Renner as a star, the title of the movie was The Hurt Locker. Now you get an idea what I went through. The only difference is I was in the Navy, so we were required to render safe underwater munitions. For Jeremy Renner, I believe, played an Army sergeant, and all branches of the military have a team of people who are able to make safe, render safe, disarm anything from a firecracker to a nuclear warhead. So I went through all of that training in the military, and in one of the phases you start off with just basic demolition, then you go to ground munitions, then air munitions, and then underwater munitions if you're in the Navy, and then nuclear weapons. And during the air munitions phase, you go through all this training and all this. It's very academic heavy. All this training, a lot of learning, a lot of memorization, a lot of procedural work. It's a grind, baby. It's a grind. The school is typically about 14, 15 hours per day for a year and a half. It is incredibly intensive. Okay, so I was going through that training at the air munition stage, and there's a practical exam that you do at the end. Now, here's the deal. Okay, so there's this little testing area, and in that testing area, they have all sorts of air-type munitions, everything from Mark 82 bombs to whatever, Sparrow missiles, you name it. They have tons of stuff laying out here in the ground, out of the ground, in a tree, out of a tree. And what they do is they assign you one of these munitions, and you have to go render it safe. Now, of course, they're not going to blow you up as a student. So they put the pressure that they put on you is a time pressure, time sequence. You're under a lot of pressure. And so what you have to do is go out here, identify the munition itself, and then you have to measure it, do all this sort of stuff, and try and come up with the right ID. Then you got to go back to the safe area, and you have to look this thing up, and you have to look up all the procedures that have been passed down through cultural transmission on how to go back and render this thing safe. Because the scenario is that this is a live weapon, and they're playing real life. But of course it's not. Again, it won't go boom and blow you up. But you're under a lot of pressure. So I went out here and I measured this thing, and it was all underneath the ground. I could only see about a foot of it. And then I went back and I did my procedures, and the time's running out. And when you walk up on this thing, you have to tiptoe up on it because all these things could be subjected to heat, shock, and friction. Okay. Now, one thing I learned so much growing up in Alaska with my mentor, and he taught me one thing that paid off on this day. He said, if you will listen to the environment, you'll listen to the land, to the earth, she'll reveal her secrets to you. Well, I went out there tiptoeing, got all my tools. I'm ready to go. I'm feeling so pumped. I'm feeling so confident. I am going to knock this thing out of the park, baby. So I set my tools down right here, and the instructor's standing right over here. And all of a sudden, I went, wait a minute. I'm looking around, I'm going, okay, this is a several 100-pound bomb, a Mark 82, supposedly dropped from a plane, plowed into the earth. My render safe procedure called for me disarming the nose fuse on this thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that munition right there, that thing that I'm doing, that thing hasn't been out of the ground in years. I could tell it. Sure enough, I even looked over at a tree, the only tree that was nearby the darn thing, about right here. And you're supposed to use a come along and jack this thing out of the ground by yourself with cables wrapped around a tree and try and pull this thing out of the ground and disarm the nose fuse. There's no bark missing off that tree. That ground is hard packed. There's vegetation growing up. Vegetation, I know it takes over a year to grow, coming right up out of the ground, right next to the nose. So I'm going, oh my gosh, something's horribly wrong here. Because no student prior to me has ever yanked this thing out of the ground. So now panic sets in, because now I don't have enough time. But man, so forget the tiptoe, heat, shock, and friction. No way. I was gone. I was out of there. And I heard you started going, where are you going? I didn't answer him back. I just took off back to the safe area, and I looked up this thing again. I said, what's an alternate procedure? What's an alternate reader safe procedure? And it called for taking out the tail fuse. So then I just diddy back, forget the 1, 2, 3 tiptoe. No way. I was back there, baby. I threw down my tools. Sure enough, I started looking around the tail area. Oh yeah, someone had unearthed that section of the bomb prior to Bryan. So therefore, I went ahead and uncovered it. I rendered it safe, and I had exactly 4 seconds left. That's all I had left, and I passed. And that instructor walked over to me and goes, so, you were lucky. You got saved by what we call EOD landmarks, didn't you? I couldn't lie. I said, heck yeah, buddy. I'm telling you what, I took one look at that thing, and I could tell that nose of that bomb had never been yanked out of this ground anytime soon. Definitely no one prior to me. If they did, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, but this thing's been in the ground ever since then. So I knew the procedure I had was incorrect. And he goes, you're absolutely right. He goes, and just know this, in real life, you need to pay attention to that as well. Okay, so good on you for doing that, but man, we're going to have to come out here with a bulldozer and lift all these things up and mess it all up, just to make sure that that doesn't happen again, that the EOD landmarks. So again, just a little bit of a funny story. I kind of got out of that one and was able to advance on and complete my training as an EOD technician in the Navy. And I had to do all that, by the way. It's like 18 months of training, all of that, just so I could work with dolphins and sea lions, because they worked with munitions. And therefore, you had to know how to handle those munitions, how to set them, how to render them safe if you needed to. So again, all of that training just so I could work with my marine mammals. Well worth it. It was an experience of a lifetime, but man, I'll never forget that story. I'll tell you what, good old EOD landmarks, baby. Again, so that's an example of cultural transmission. Cultural transmission, in which information is passed from one generation to the next. It can be done within a lifetime. It can pass quickly. It's part of social learning. Social learning. So this really does impact anytime you bring a new dog into your household, because of what are you going to teach this dog? What do you do? What habits do you have? What about the dogs that you currently have? What do they do? This cultural transmission out of the 3, natural selection and individual learning, is the one that has been studied the least. It doesn't get the same amount of attention, but until just recently. Now, as about the last 5 years, it suddenly is. In fact, there's a couple of studies, and one of them I just want to go over real quickly, just so you kind of get an idea. And some of this stuff's kind of new to me. I didn't know this as well. But I guess apparently for rats, I thought a rat could eat anything. I truly did. Probably like you, I thought a rat could just, it didn't matter what it was. It could just eat anything unless it's rat poison. Apparently not. Apparently foraging is a very dangerous task, a very dangerous undertaking for a rat. They will come across a novel odor, follow it, and then launch into the food. And that food could either be an unexpected bounty or it could be danger. And that's really bad. In fact, half of those render safe procedures we had in the military was because some human rat went foraging on an unexploded bomb, and something he did turned him into a pink cloud, if you get my drift. And that kept happening. You cut the blue wire, you're pink cloud. You cut the red wire, you're pink cloud. So fortunately, by the time it trickled down to me back in 1983, the sacrifices of many people came up with very safe, render-safe procedures for us to do because of their sacrifices. So that cultural transmission ended up saving, I cannot tell you how many lives, countless lives during all the wars we've had. So again, the same thing that happens with rats, and what they found out is this, that when these rodents go out and they eat this novel food, and they have this novel odor, they come back to their little litter or to their other group of rats, and they smell that rat. They go, what have you been eating? Well, obviously the fact that you're back here with us, you're still alive, obviously we can eat it. And so this study was done by, I think, if I remember correctly, Dr. Galed and a few others. And basically they took two group of rats, and they made one rat what's called a tutor rat, and the other one an observer rat. So they put two rats together, and they did this for 8 sets of rats, total 16 rats. And they put two together, one being a tutor rat, one being an observer rat, in a cage together for a couple of days. So they got familiar with one another. Then they took out the tutor rat, took them to a separate room, and put them in a cage in which there was rat meal and Hershey cocoa. And in the other cage, there was rat meal and cinnamon type spices and sugars mixed in with the rat meal. And they did this for 8 tutors for the chocolate, 8 tutors for the cinnamon. Then they brought them back, put them in the cage with the observer rats, the rat that had not seen them, didn't know where they went, never watched them eat anything at all. They gave them time to be together for 15 minutes. Then they removed the tutor rats again. And then what they did is in the cage, they put down the 2 choices of food. The food with the cinnamon or the food with the chocolate. And those that had been in contact, had interacted with the rat with the chocolate, that's the food that they went for. They ignored the cinnamon and went for the food with the chocolate, and vice versa. The other rats that were introduced by the tutor rat to the cinnamon smell, they went for the cinnamon food. And again, that's called cultural transmission, and it can pass down and continue to be passed down from one generation to the next. A good example of cultural transmission is when you go to these third world countries or these extremely undeveloped countries that do not have access to a computer or an iPhone and all that stuff. They have access to elders. They have chieftains. And in fact, they're probably all called Chief Google. That's their Google. That is it. They pass down information from generation to generation to generation. And where this comes into play with your dog, let me give an example of Captain and a German Shepherd we had that passed away years ago, and his name was Dax. Dax was a big boy. You've heard me mention him before in videos. Well, if you've ever watched my videos where I throw a ball for Captain, if you haven't, go back and watch a few of them. And then pay attention, because what you will notice is this. Before the ball is even launched, if I even just so much as do that kind of stance, Captain's gone. And he is gone. And he is gone, fully committed, every atom in his body, full speed, in a straight line. It doesn't matter if the ball is going to go east or west or south. No, he's going north. Straight line. Straight line. Now, what caused that behavior? Because that's not natural. Normally, you got to locate your prey. You got to see it. You got to chase after it. No, he's already gone. He's fully committed. And you've seen me even fake him out. And the reason why that occurred is because Dax, who was an older German Shepherd, loved the ball. And what would happen is that in the beginning, I threw the ball, and he and Captain went after it. And there was a competition. They were just very competitive about the ball. And Captain learned that he had to be much faster than Dax to get to the ball. So the second, it's kind of like you're on the starting line, on my mark, get set, and someone goes. They cheat. They just go. Well, that became Captain. He just went. He didn't wait for me to wind up and throw that darn ball. The second it even looked like I was about to throw it, if I even thought I was going to throw it, he was already gone. And then a funny thing on that whole story is Dax kind of learned that. He goes, okay, he keeps cheating. He leaves way too early before the starting gun. He should be disqualified. And seeing how you're not going to disqualify him, Bryan, I am. And so after about, I don't know how many times, 10 times maybe so, next thing you know, when Dax brought the ball back, when Captain brought the ball back, Dax attacked him. And then the next time before Captain even got ready to go, he's already after him. He was taking out his competition, flat out. So then, of course, I had to learn how to down Captain and down Dax and throw the ball for each one of them individually so they can both have ball play without Dax trying to kill my new pup. But the issue is here, or the moral behind this whole thing, is Captain learned to just take off in a straight line from cultural transmission from Dax. Dax taught him, first of all, this is things called the ball, and it goes that way. And if you go real fast, you can get to the ball first. So that's the first thing he passed down, that the ball itself, object play, was this incredible thing to do. Otherwise, I don't even know if Captain would have gone after the ball, honestly. I don't know. I think the first time I ever threw a ball for him, it was around Dax. And so he watched, and he learned, and he was taught all this stuff. And then he was taught, just go, just go. Also, Captain will readily bark as someone that comes to our house, and he used to not do that right off the bat because our other Morkie named Poe, this little thing that I call the mouth of the South. Oh my gosh, that little thing, I'm still amazed. How does that much sound come out of a body that's less than 5 pounds? I can't figure it out. It's like a little bitty miniature air horn. Well, anyway, there's no doubt in my mind that Captain learned to bark and learned what to bark at because of Poe. No doubt. Cultural transmission. Passed down. And if a puppy comes in, Captain and Poe will try and pass that down to the new pup. No doubt in my mind. If I take the puppy out and throw the ball, that puppy's going to go, whoa, okay. So in other words, you don't wait for the ball. You don't wait till it's airborne. You just go, right? Okay, yeah, she's going to learn that. So all that being said, whenever you're bringing a new dog into your household, whether it's an older dog or a younger dog, not only do you have to do all the other things I told you about, getting the crate, getting the playpen and the food and all the housebreaking and what have you, you got to think about what are my present dogs going to teach this new dog? What is going to be passed down through social learning? And you need to start thinking about that before the puppy arrives. I certainly am. I'm going, okay, so maybe, I don't know if it's so bad if the dog just takes off after the ball, but it could, because if I happen to be near a road and I just happen to look like I was going to throw it, but I was going to really wait till a car passes by before I throw it, that could be bad. Okay, so therefore I have great control over Captain. I can call him back off a ball in the blink of an eye, and therefore I'll throw a ball at a rest park while we're on our way to the mountains or whatever. But I'm not so sure I'm going to allow that with this puppy. And the same thing goes for the barking. Barking is already that's a hard thing to control. It really is. I mean, control or suppress it is more, what I should say. I've done videos on barking, and tomorrow I'm going to do another one. I'm going to take this thing into deep layers and explain to you why you got to be patient with it and what you have to do, because this thing has many layers like an onion. You got to peel it back one after another, because there's a million reasons why a dog can bark. And again, they'll learn that through cultural transmission. Okay, guys, so anyway, just want to kind of share that with you, just another term that you can park out there if you ever hear it, because you probably will hear more about it than what you've heard in the past. You'll probably read about it. It's being discussed quite heavily in the human world, and then now starting to filter its way slowly but surely, like all studies. I'll be honest with you, I love studies, but 80% of the studies that they do with dogs are garbage. They are. I don't know who's doing it and why they're doing it and who's motivating them, and if they have to do it for a thesis or to get some sort of certification, but are they truly adding to the pool of knowledge, to the pool of meaning? Not so. And next week, towards the end of the week, after I get past my Pups and Pregnancy series, I'll share with you a couple of studies in which you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, guys, so cultural transmission, there you go. And if you ever come across any sort of EOD, explosive ordnance disposal landmarks, pay attention to them. I certainly did. Save my bacon. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I'll check in with you tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about barking tomorrow. Take care. Cattle Dog, where are you, buddy? Come here, buddy. Get up. All right, you Cattle Dog. Yeah, he's the one. You ain't cheating. You ain't trying, right, Cattle Dog? You learn how to just take the heck off, man. He is gone. I love the little guy. See you guys later.